Ode to the Barebones. I can remember Barebones well. Them smoking chimneys, they reeked like hell. Rows of terraced houses, we laked on rocks at top. Lines of weshing strung in yards. Once somebody nicked our prop. Ely Street and Wood Street with faces from the past. Long forgotten people and memories that do last. I remember Britannia Street with doors that creaked shut, watching that Flash Gordon on Saturdays at Bug's Hut. We never had no proper shoes. I had a buet and a clog. We all had big cellars. Just look at that dog. It's all gone now, but I'd love to go back. I think I'll put it in Chronicle. We ought to put up a plaque.
I laked at hopscotch with me friends and never travelled far. I am a Barnsley lass, you know.
Hello everyone, I'm Tony Hulson and I want to talk to you today about the Barebones. Now, being a Barnsley lad born and bred, I'd like to tell you all a little bit about this place. Now, the Barebones finished up being a slum area, but it was nearly all demolished by the late 60s, and originally it was a thriving area of the town with plenty of history. Now, for those people born after 1970, you might just wonder where the Barebones was. Well, let me explain. It was actually in a quadrant roughly a mile by half a mile in area. Coming into the town from the south, picture the crossroads on the A61 Sheffield Road. Come into the town to the Alhambra roundabout and then take a left. So you go up towards Morrison's, then turn up New Street and turn left up Wood Street. Up to the top of Wood Street, you meet Park Road. Turn left again and then back down to Sheffield Road to complete the quadrant. Again, this was all on the left. Now, why was it called the Barebones, you may well ask? Well, there has been one or two theories over the years. One of them being that there was once a gibbet situated on the corner of Agnes Road and Wood Street. Now, this was a structure from which villains and ne'er-do-wells were hung, having been convicted of committing a serious crime. Their corpses were suspended in a metal cage and left to rot, for all to see as a warning to others, until all that remained were the Barebones. Another answer can be found on the old maps of the area. They clearly show the geological fault lines, where the land actually slips. Now, this slip curves round to the south of the town, past the Worsborough cutting. Dave Cherry, our director, now he tells me that the coal facers at Barra and Barnsley main collieries took the coal right up to the fault line, under the area of Coke Street. But what was it actually like living there? Let's go and find out by going to speak to some of the people who might well know.
Methodist Chapel, and we're here to meet the people who have any memories about life living in the Barebones.
This is Buckley Methodist Chapel. This building that we're in at the moment is the schoolroom, which was built in 1869 and was the original chapel. It wasn't big enough for everybody that were coming. Wish that were the same today. But 6 years later, in 1876, the congregation that were here saved enough money and got funding and help from businessmen to build the chapel building next door, which was originally called the Henry Lodge Memorial Chapel, and then it became Buckley Street Chapel. And then when everything was knocked down in the 70s, of course, Buckley Street Chapel were the only thing left standing, and in this area, and they built round it, and Buckley Street didn't exist anymore. It became Union Court, so the chapel became known as Buckley Methodist Chapel.
Yeah, I'm here because I've got a very strong connection to the area in Barnsley called the Barebones, or locally known as the Barebones. My great-grandma, Mary Stuart Thompson, she lived on Union Street, which was right in the heart of the Barebones, and a few doors off her lived my grandma and granddad Bray. Now they again lived on Union Street, but they had, in a small house, they had 8 children, which sounds an awful lot, but actually in those days it wasn't unusual for families to have 8 children. My mother Mary was one of those children. Also my uncle Tommy, who was famous throughout the Barebones. In fact, he was famous throughout Barnsley because of his footballing talent. He played for the best team around at that time, the best local team around, Wynn Street.
I lived in Britannia Street, 35, with my grandparents, me and my sister. They were window cleaners, my grandma and my grandfather, and in a 2 up and 2 down terrace house, tin bath on the wall outside, toilet up the yard, no central heating, a coal fire, no double glazing, very little hot water. So, but we were well off in them days, like everybody else, you know. And then occasionally once a week we used to go to Star Cinema.
Bugs.
Known locally as the Bugs Hut. Yeah. What can I say? Nobody had nothing in them days, but we were all friends, and it was very nice, a nice place to live, you know. I enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I lived on Cemetery Road with my dad and my mum, but my mum died in 1970. And my dad used to take us to a restaurant. I thought it was only at top of Shepherd Road. It wasn't, it was further down towards the town. And you could get a Sunday lunch there, 3 courses for 50 pence. So it was after decimalisation. And you could have chicken, beef, and we used to go every Sunday and get a Sunday dinner. And then after a bit, we just stopped going. My father wouldn't tell us why, he just said we can't go anymore. And me and my brother in the end said, look, we want to have, it was nice that, we enjoyed it. Can we go back? And this was about 3 months later. My dad decided to tell us why we couldn't go. Because a woman had gone in and she'd had the 50 pence thing, I think she had chicken or beef, and a bone got stuck in her throat and they couldn't get it out.
Right.
So she ended up in hospital.
Oh dear.
They got the bone out, but when they looked at the bone, this is a chicken bone. What is this? So obviously they sent it off to be checked. And outcome of that was the restaurant got raided by the police and the health people,
food standard or whatever they're called. And when they went into the kitchen, they opened the oven, and in the oven, on the bottom tray was half an Alsatian dog, and the tray above it was full of rats. And that's what we've been eating.
Right.
But my father didn't want to tell us because he thought we might have felt ill.
I can remember Barebones because I used to come up over Wood Street from Princess Street every week to visit my granddad on Albion Street. We used to come up and go for a ride with my granddad. It was lovely over there. He used to take us every Sunday morning for a ride round. There were a lot of old houses. We came up Wood Street. There were old Wood Street pub. There were Clarkson's brewery. There were rocks. There were old houses. There were all sorts. Houses used to be built with a lot of different steps, and there were all marvellous places to see. There were everything. There were people who used to talk to you. You could walk down and everybody had talk. There were terraces as you come across, Grace Terrace, everything. I can't think of what they did. And then they pulled Clarkson's brewery down, and they said after that they couldn't build houses or out on them for 20 years. But it weren't long after before they put all the masonettes up on them. And I don't know, now when I come up and I've walked over today now, and I got lost. I can't think how different it's all changed. Everything's just changed. You can't imagine. My granddad on Albion Street at side of this church, it's just all so different. I can't think how different it is. Everybody had a neighbour. Now, I don't know my neighbours. I ain't a clue who my neighbours are. I don't even know the names. But if you wanted a cup of sugar, you knock next door. Can I borrow a cup of sugar, please, till next time, and I'll fetch it back when I've got it in? Yeah, of course you can. If you put your washing out and it rained, your neighbour would fetch it in. Now, they leave it out and it gets wet through again. They don't bother no more. You don't have neighbours no more. No, it's all changed. No, nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody. It's all changed. No, it's like it used to be anymore.
It hasn't changed for the better.
It hasn't changed.
We'd give a lot to go back to those times.
It hasn't. Sometimes I wish I could go back to old times. You'd see people in the street that say, "Hey up, lass, how are you? Hey up. Oh, not so bad, thanks. Not so bad at all. How's your son? Oh, not too bad. How's the rest of the family? Oh, they're all doing all right. That's nice to know. Aye, I'll see you later. Oh, all right then. See you next week. Aye, all right. And that'd be it. And then you'd see him week after. You'd go off and you'd see him week after. And then you'd all be all right and see him week after and say, "Hey up, how you going on? Oh, not so bad. Were you all right last week?" Aye, of course we were. And that's it, you know. But now, they can't even give you time of day. You go into the market. It's not a market like we used to have. Everybody used to be shouting, saying what they were selling. Now, they can't even shout. They don't know what to say. It's a terrible market now. I've been in this morning, got what I wanted, come straight out. I don't think I were in about 45 minutes. It's not half as nice as it used to be. But that's the way it world now. I don't think nobody knows.
Yeah,
what
I'm afraid
to say.
you're right. That's the way things are.
That's the way it world.
Yeah.
The me society.
Yeah,
Yeah, quite right.
Yes, I'm just for me and pot you're nobody now. And that's it.
Yeah.
I lived at number 48 Britannia Street from being about 2.
Up near Bugs.
Oh, yeah, same street as Bugs Hut. My mum and dad talked about Bugs Hut a lot. It was a sloping floor down to the front, and people sometimes didn't bother going to the toilet, so...
You didn't want to sit at front then?
You had to lift your feet up, apparently. And apparently it was crawling as well.
Crawling up Willow.
Eh? Bugs. Bugs. I think I remember when it burnt down because we always played out. We never ever... Well, we did play in house. And we did a lot of reading, a lot of drawing. We always had paper, had tons of books. I think we were fortunate for the time. The street behind us, behind Britannia Street, must have been demolished before that because we had like a big waste ground before you got to the next street. And that, like old demolition site, were our playground a lot of the time. And there were a lot of burnt paper on it one day, and I think they were like magazine programmes, they were really thick. And you could smell burning in the air as well. We didn't see a fire, we smelled burning. Ooh, right.
Can I ask you some sort of conspiracy theory about it burning down?
I don't know much about that. I won't be surprised though, because it had swapped hands a lot, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had swapped hands a lot. Our house was basically two up, two down. We got a proper pantry, like a stone pantry, and that's where food was kept, hot fresh food. But we didn't have a cellar, it only went down a certain level. And I can remember there were a windowsill, and you could see milk every morning. And then at weekend we got orange juice. You could see orange juice on the windowsill. Kitchen, well, we got a sink, but no hot water, apart from a geyser. There were no like running hot water. In the living room there were a range, which she was, my mother, she was a brilliant cook. She used for things like rice puddings, and we used to have lovely sort of proper stews, like ham shanks and all that sort of thing. Cheap things, basically. Never had like prime cuts of beef. I can't remember any prime cuts of beef or all like that. A very rare roast on a Sunday. No bathroom. 2 bedrooms upstairs. Ours was little one. I think ours was front to back. I think ours was sideways on. And we were always warm. We were always clean. We were always fed. We were always looked after. We did know a lot of neighbours, and I could name neighbours, but I don't know if that's allowed. You're allowed to name people that live there.
You can if you mention.
Closest neighbours were straight across from us, and it were Margaret and Mrs. Collins. I don't know what happened to Mr. Collins, because I was only a child at the time, but I think probably Second World War.
Jill, what years did you live there and how old were you when you left?
Well, I was born in 57, and we were like second slum clearance in sort of 60s. My grandma and granddad had been cleared from the town centre up to Wisborough Common in 30s, and that's where I was born. That's where my mum and dad lived to begin with when they were first married. And then I had a sister 18 months younger than me, so she probably was born at Common as well. But then we moved down to Britannia Street, mum and dad and two children, and left about... I started junior school, so I'll be 7. Anyway, we went to Mount Bretton, we went to New Estate at Mount Bretton, new school, new estate. So my memories are only about 5 years, but they're just so clear.
So that community that were there, that we heard about from Mrs. Marsden, when they cleared the area of the houses, really you all got dispersed,
We were all
didn't
split
you?
up, we were really split up. My mum wanted to stay in town. My family is town people, and I'd been historically. Like my granddad said, if you sat on their house, if you sat on a chair at back at the living room, you could put your feet upon the fireplace. Houses were that little.
You were mentioning how you were all split up.
Mm.
After you were all split up, did you ever come back and see each other
Oh,
again?
absolutely.
Did you?
Yeah. We were one at first to be moved out. And my mum had been told that we couldn't stay in town. If we wanted another house, we got to go to Mount Bretton. They didn't want to go, but we did.
And we're actually very happy there, strangely. But we always went back and visited. Now, them neighbours, Margaret and Mrs Collins, that we were closest to, they did get a house on Middlesex Street, which is just other side of where Barebones was. Right up at top, new council houses, and quite a few people from Britannia Street went up that area. And we used to see them when we went and visited. They came to us in Mount Breton, and a lot of us have stayed close ever since. A lot have passed away, a lot have died. Yeah.
So do you want to talk me through these photos that you
Yeah, I'll
got?
talk you through them. I think that is outside that house.
Yes,
that
it
is,
looks similar.
yeah, that is Margaret, who lived opposite us, and were a massive, massive influence on me.
Why so? How did she influence?
She wasn't over time. I don't think I realised it then. But if you look, we're holding little dolls. She'd been to Switzerland. This is in Sixties. She went to Australia in Sixties. She brought us back little pretend koalas, real fur, but koalas. She travelled. She got a good job. She worked at post office at Town End, and then she worked at school meals on Pitt Street West. And she read to me every night. My mother always read. My dad always read.
What kind of books did she read?
We used to read cartoons from Daily Mail, which I don't think were as Tory as it is these now. But they used to be black box cartoons. She used to read that to me. Read all what Katie did next books. Black Beauty, it's one of my favourites. And she always read to me, and my mother always read. And apparently I was correcting them. Because they back deliberate mistakes, that sort of thing.
Can you remember how much the Daily Mail was back then?
Oh no, couple of pence. That's on our windowsill.
Is that you?
That's me at about 3 or 4.
And me and my mum were talking about these haircuts. Was
yeah.
that a common haircut back then?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was very common. We used to go down to hairdressers on Sheffield Road, and it was pretty much at bottom of our street, and it was that one with a curved front. It had been a laundrette and all kinds of things, but that's where we used to go. That's one at Swiss Door Pictures, that's just outside either our house or Margaret's house. That must be Whitsuntide, I think. And our house, if looking down from top of Britannia Street, it was on the right, and after that first block there were a ginnel, which is Barnsley Barebones A. And that's like where you can actually see where ginnel was.
And this washing line, did you share this with other neighbours?
No, that were ours. Obviously we were fenced off, and all this would have been that area that was old demolition site.
So did you have a mini front garden?
No, this is back at house. I know it looks a bit, front of this you can't really tell. This is back at house. That will be there. Old tin bath hanging out wall, which you can't see unfortunately. But I always think it looks like a Purcell advert, because she didn't have a washing machine.
Yeah.
She had a posturing tub, like a thing that used to spin around. We used to sit on it. Peggy tub.
Peggy tub.
I couldn't remember what they called it, tub. And it was a posher, wasn't it, with 3 legs. Yeah.
So how long would that take to wash clothes?
All day. She was at it all day. When she got a washing machine, she was up all night washing.
Really?
And she really annoyed the neighbour next door. That much noise.
I was born in 1941 and I lived on 78 Ely Street. That was next door to a pub called Wood Street Hotel. Right, I could lie in bed and hear my mother singing at the pub, because there were a landing that went part way over the concert room at the pub, and we had a bed on that it was a 2-bedroom house, and eventually when we left with 6 kids, in fact my mother and father had 1 bedroom, 6 kids had 1 bedroom. There were 2 at top of bed, there were 3 at top of bed, and there were 3 at bottom of bed. Times were hard, everything were on ration to start with. People were trying to find things at black market, one thing or another. But my mother always seemed to manage to pose that, although my auntie that lived in had a fish shop across the road. So she would, when she sent for two lots of chips, it had come back about 4 lots of chips, so there were plenty in for us and that, especially when it got to about Thursday. But in general, it were a happy time to live there. Don't know such thing as TVs and one thing and another. I mean, we came home from school, I went to Douglas Road school, and when we came home from school, it was, we had a slice of jam and bread back through the door, playing out until she shouted us in for bed. Sunday night, that was bath night, tin bath came in, she was filling it up, kettles full of hot water and one thing and another. So we were in early then, and I mean, in the middle of summer, in the 6-week holiday, we would be in bed for about 7 or half past, and other kids were all still playing out on the streets, which you knew we were in house and that way. But we had a good time. There were various things, but she was always good at finding things. But when it come to Christmas, toys there weren't many toys flying about, like it might be a bit of a board with some rubber rings throwing them on and things like that. But there were always a tree went up, they were artificial, and she found somewhere where she could get these little bulbs, and she spent hours and hours painting different patterns on these balls. They went up tree. Now, just over the wall from where we lived, which was the same yard as pub yard, there was a spice shop that made spice, boiled spice, called Clayton's Spice Shop, and they had a little shop in New Street that sold spice and things like that. And so my grandfather worked there. His job was to lift big vats of toffee as it were boiling and tip it onto these slabs for them to roll. And they used to roll it out, and Christmas time the men put walking sticks, and then we'd get some of them, they'd be hung on trees and things like that. Everybody were trying to look for cheapest way to get a Christmas, but it was hard for everybody. And I mean, when we talk about neighbours, when Saturday night finished, we was living next door to a pub. Neighbours would come out, I'm talking about neighbours on the street, there were Swifts, Hampshires, Stotts, all them. And swiftly further down the road, yeah, towards where there's some rocks that is still there, them rocks, but I had a look the other day at them and they look very small to what we used to play on. Our house, this road that goes up here from Ely Street, travelled from virtually, there was a pit field at the end of our street that had about 14 massive air raid shelters in that were built for war, for people to go in. We had one in his own backyard. There were 3 houses in our yard, and it was just a small round. The mother wouldn't take us in. She was saying, no, if they're going to bombers, then bombers it house. So we were kept it house, we would have taken it there. We did have masks, but we had one that were a massive one that you could put a full-size baby in, plastic, and that were a mask that you could put a baby in if bombing ever came, but it never did. My dad, he worked at Pitt, but he worked at Gorton Wood early on. He did work at Woolley, but I can't remember him working at Woolley, but he did work at Woolley at some time. He travelled, he married my mother, he came from Leeds and he married my mother.
Why did he come from Leeds?
Well,
for Pete?
No, he never knew his father. His father died when he was 2. And his mother remarried, and he didn't like him. And he had a sister come to live in Barnsley. She lived at Woolsbury Common. And so when he got to 16, he decided, right, I'm leaving home. And he came to live with his sister. He met my mother at Fair, and that's when they got married. And that's where he finished up in Barnsley. But he worked at Gorton Wood, and I can remember, as laying in bed, he always wore clogs, and they didn't bath at Peel then, and you could hear him coming down Wood Street with his clogs on when he coming home, whether it was afternoon shift or whether it was at night shift, I don't know, but you could tell. And then you'd be laid in bed, and then you'd hear this rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. It were a knocker up. They used to pay An old man came round with a big stick and it had like wires on end.
What time was that, Clive?
Oh, well, you'd book your time, like my dad were getting up for day shift, so he might have to be up for 5 o'clock maybe. So he'd be booked to come and knock on that about 5 o'clock. And you'd hear this, and he would, my mother shout, "Aye, aye, I've heard thee." And then he'd start again and say, "I've heard thee," right? A old bloke. I remember him coming in, and I can't remember what she paid him. He was knocking on like a quite old bloke and that. And as I said, over thing about spice factory, and so we'd get things from there and that, and Granddad worked in it, so she'd get things cheap like.
When did you start at Barra, Clive?
Oh, they're jumping a long way there. I mean,
50s.
going back into Barebones. I mean, I left Barebones when I was 10. That's when I started clearing out.
Right.
And we moved out to Kensington. But I think 10 years in on Barebones were worth 20, 30 years anywhere else. If a book could be written, in fact, Pete Doyle said to me, we ought to get together and write a book about it, but never. But there were happy times there, and I mean, as I say, toys weren't. In fact, our Roy was only one. He got a bike one Christmas, and that was the second hand. But in general, we were out playing out day in and day out. Lock Park, Rockley, they were our playgrounds. We spent years and years and years running around. I mean, people have said to me many times, why were you going down Rockley, how old were you? I said, we didn't even stop to think how old we were. There's a kid in there now, he's 2 years older than me, and he lived on the same street as me, and he could tell you, we'd be out every day, bird nesting. Everybody had boxes of birds' eggs. I've got to agree that, you know, then days they weren't as strict as they are now. But in general, it was a really good happy time. We'd go to Lock Park first thing on the morning, especially at weekend when band were playing. There'd be hundreds of folding chairs. They'd all be put out. People would sit around listening to band. And we used to go running around trying to find empty pot bottles. If we found a pot bottle, it bought us 2 slices of bread at cafe. And we didn't need to go back home. We kept getting bottles, getting a slice of bread, and be out all day. A lot of fun were made in them parks because they've cut back on a lot of trees in them parks now. But we could go in there building camps and all sorts and spend all day there. But anyway, yeah, it was a good pub that, and there were a lot of locals went in it. But it was a good pub that one. Had some good times in it. In fact, I have a mate that he got done for drinking underage. He was only just 15. Police came in and said, "How old are you?" He says, "I'm 15. Why?" He said, "Well, you're not supposed to be in here." He said, "Nobody's told me that." He said, "Well, did landlord ask you?" He said, "No, I just asked him for a pint and he sold me it, and that was it." But things were easy going, you know, things like that. There'd be people coming round. Ragman had come round, he was scrounging rags up to give you a pot, cup or something like that when you handed him in and things like that. You know, everybody was trying to make do, but as I say, living next door to a pub, when that pub shut, everybody came into my mother's house. You could hear them downstairs. I mean, we'd all be in bed like that. And you could hear them laughing and joking. And then Chip Pan had come out on an open fire, right, doing chips for him and one thing and another. And one day, it caught fire. My mother went to grab it. All fat shot out, all over her legs. But I had a brother younger than me, and he was crawling, and he was downstairs, and all chip fat went all over him. Oh God! When there was a doctor, Dr. Alistair, there were 2 brothers, Alistair K and Robert K, but they had surgery with back off. He'd just come out of army. He come and he'd blisters that were as big as 5 and 6 inch long blisters on him, my brother, and he just and he kept busting them and doing, and all you could see on that man was his nostrils his eyes and his mouth and that, bandages all over. But he survived. He's only got one on his, he only had one on his arm when he finished. And Alistair, he used to come 10 o'clock at night, early hours at morning, to see my mother and they'll dress her wounds and that, till it got to Christmas, and came and she was at the pub next door. I said, where is she? I said, she's in next door. It was about 10 o'clock at night. He says, right, tell her she's to start coming to surgery and things like that. You know, everything was easy going and that. And how them doctors survived, I'll never know. Because they could come at 2 o'clock in the morning, any time. It was unbelievable. And when you went to surgery, I've seen me good at surgery, sitting 6 o'clock, and we still sat there at 9:30, 10 o'clock, then the doctor come in at that time. And when you said to people, well, why don't you move? What? There's nobody better than these two. And that's where it was. But it was a good time. But as I said, them all lived up Barebones, and they were all good neighbours, but nobody had out, you know. There were no. I think when you got to an house where you had to have had a garden, people then started thinking, well, we've got to make our garden better than theirs. On Barebones, there were no gardens. There were just flags outside, flag yards and things like that, you know. I hope you find that we're taking and making into a bike or a scooter, or he took it and did it and made it. But, yeah, it was a good time.
I was born in Wynn Street, just off Sheffield Road in Barnsley, what they call the Barebones, in 6th of June 1959. And it was, I remember my mum, she said it was a Saturday morning. I was born at 10 o'clock and it was a glorious summer day. And it was that hot they got doors open, and she went into labour and gave birth to me. And she says she'll always remember it, because when I was born, they put me, they couldn't afford a cot, so they pulled a drawer out of the chest of drawers and used a bottom drawer as a bed or a cot for me. And that's where I was born, up Barebones, in Wynn Street. I wish I could remember the number at door, but I can't. And shortly after that, 1960, they started demolishing that area at Barebones, and my mum and dad were lucky enough to get a brand new council house up Kingston on Raleigh Street. So I can't remember much at Barebones personally, but I can only tell you stuff what my mum and dad used to talk about when they lived in that area. And they used to go in pubs called Prov, called Provident, and another pub called Greenhouse. And also my mum's mum and dad lived in that area, and they had a fish shop, I believe, at one time down that area. Because my mum and dad moved in, or lived, when they got first married, they lived with me, my mum's mum and dad, for the time being, while they got this house in Wynn Street. And my dad's, at that time, he worked at Woolly Colliery, and obviously my mum had, because I'm the youngest of 4 kids, I got my sister Pauline, or eldest, who sadly passed now, and my 2 twin brothers Peter and Barry, and I was youngest of 4. So my mother busy looking after young kids while my dad went to Woolly Colliery, and he told me he used to walk it most of the time. Yeah, he couldn't afford bus fare, which were long and hard days then, back then. And the house they lived in Wynn Street, it was just 2 up, 2 down. There were no toilets or bathrooms. It was outside toilet, a top of yard, and a tin bath. But like I say, they were fortunate enough to get a brand new council house, Raleigh Street, Kingston, in the early 60s. So my memory of the Barebones as such is basically what my parents tell me. I do remember as a kid going in that, because my mum's sister, my auntie Edna Shaw, and my uncle John Shaw, they owned they run the Manx Arms on Sheffield Road for quite a period, so we used to go down there as a kid visiting my auntie Edna, and we used to play in that area. We used to play on the rock and areas like that, and that's basically what my memory of the Barebones is where I was born. Unfortunately, I weren't brought up there. I was brought up Kingston and grew up Kingston, and I had an happy childhood up there, and met, you know, long time friends up there. We grew up together, we played together, we worked together, and I wish I could tell you more, but unfortunately I can't. That's my experience of the Barebones.
Local historian and filmmaker Dave Cherry says many tales are still told about life at Barebones.
Oh, it was a working class. Everybody knew everybody. There's some right funny stories. I mean, one of this marching band came down Win Street, Salvation Army, one Sunday morning. And there's a young lad there, Salvation, give money for the Lord. He's second, money for the Lord, money for the Lord. Old man says, give that in here, thee. I've been seeing him before thee.
Times has changed. It's all in past. It wasn't like this when I were a lass.
boiled ham and chuffing potted mate.
We jump on the bus and we go maybe with some people you know. We forgot our cares and our woes a long, long time ago.
Wire Trellis, Manor Castle, Crossgate, Corner Pin, Wheatsheaf, King George, White Hart, Flowing Channels, Yuki Job Trafalgar. What was that pub that were up that hill? Shakespeare, number 7, Greenhouse, Pig and Whistle, Operation Warncliffe, Crossgate, Rose and Thistle, Potted Leopard, Old Prob, Royal Oak, Three Cranes, Manor Castle, Euclides. I can't remember all them names.
I can remember Barebones well. It's all gone now, but I'd love to go back. I think I'll put it in Chronicle. We ought to put up a plaque.
I'm a Barnsley lass, you know, I can't speak mighty dark. I learned how to cook and clean and sew, and I said the and that. I laked at hopscotch with me friends and never travelled far. I am a Barnsley lass, you know, and I said the and that. I were grown up when I were 10. I learned how to read and write me sent. We say thou what? How much? Posh folk think it's double Dutch. I wore me sisters and me downs. I could make the kettle boil. I chopped the sticks and let the fire.
That dreamt up that stairfoot roundabout.